Ambassador Herman from Denmark and Ambassador Uludong from Palau today at the second online briefing for stakeholders on the preparations for the 2020 UN Ocean Conference. As you know, the 2020 UN Ocean Conference will be held in Lisbon, Portugal from 2 to 6 June 2020. Preparations for the conference continue as planned. However, we are constantly monitoring the situation of COVID-19, and if there are changes, those will be communicated accordingly. We are also in close connection with the co-hosts, especially the Portuguese authorities on this matter as well. This is the second webinar dedicated to stakeholders from different sectors, including non-governmental organizations, civil society organizations, academic institutions, the scientific community, the private sector, and philanthropic organizations. Other engagement opportunities have been shared, have been established previously. One is the first webinar that the co-facilitators, ambassadors from Denmark and Palau, they convened in January. So the focus was to collect, to brief stakeholders on the process and the preparatory process for the conference. There was also an online consultation as asked by the co-facilitators to collect inputs from different stakeholders to the 2020 Ocean Conference Declaration, and 187 inputs were collected and they were made available to the co-facilitators, and they revised and considered them when they were drafting the zero draft, which we will be discussing today. There is one active opportunity now for stakeholders to provide inputs to the concept papers of the interactive dialogues. The deadline has been adjusted to 19 March 2020. And more opportunities will be made available on the website below. So the main topic of the discussions today is the zero draft of the conference intergovernment declaration. We also have partners from UN NGLS, UN Global Compact, and Dualus who are collaborating with us in a number of processes related to stakeholder participation at the conference. So I will encourage participants to use the chat box for any questions or comments that you might have during the presentation from the ambassadors. The first session, the ambassadors will be talking to you about the conference declaration, the zero draft, and the process that they are facilitating with member states. I will urge you for any questions related to the logistics, to registration, to other things, to be presented in the chat box at a later stage. We will have a session dedicated to that. So please focus your comments on the zero draft of the declaration. I will also, after the ambassadors make their intervention, we will be inviting stakeholders to make comments. Those stakeholders, when they register to the webinar, they indicated their interest. They know who they are, and we have a list. We will be going through this list. If there's time, we will invite more stakeholders to contribute as well. So without further ado, I want to invite Ambassadors Herman and Ambassador Uludong. The floor is yours, please. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nayara. This is Martin Herman. I hope everybody can hear me. Let me begin by thanking all participants that are joining this call today from all over the world. As Nayara said, I think both myself and Ola, we hope that you and your families are all safe and healthy. These are unusual times, and I think we send a virtual hug to everybody around the world. Stay safe. We will get through this difficult time together. Now, the purpose of this webinar, of course, is to listen primarily to your reactions and inputs to the zero draft for the political declaration of the UN Ocean Conference, a draft that we circulated on 2nd of March, and which was also published on the conference website. Now, on behalf of Ola and myself, I also want to take this opportunity to express our appreciation for the active and very, very constructive engagement of civil society and other stakeholders at the preparatory meeting that we held here in New York in the beginning of February. We were delighted that so many got a chance to intervene during those 2 days. Those were important inputs, and also very much appreciate the input that we received from many of you through the online questionnaire, and of course our first webinar. This has been very, very useful for us while developing the zero draft that we circulated 2nd of March. Now, but before we begin our discussion on the zero draft, let me just say a few words about the current situation and how that is affecting the process of the Ocean Conference outcome document. Now, due to the latest developments of the coronavirus or COVID-19 situation, we as co-facilitators, in dialogue with the President of the General Assembly, decided not to convene physical, if you like, informal consultations on the zero draft this week as was originally planned. And instead, we have asked all member states to send the statements they would have delivered to us in writing and give us other inputs. As was mentioned by Nara, we've given member states until I think it is 19th of March to submit those written statements and comments to us. And based on the inputs that we received, we will then aim to circulate a revised draft by the beginning of April. Now, we had originally planned to have a second round of informal consultations in the middle of April. But as the situation looks now, we will probably, and I say probably because a lot is uncertain, be asking member states for their written inputs to the revised draft instead of convening informal consultations. And we will, of course, keep you updated on our plans as soon as we have more clarity. But over to you, Ola, to say a few words on the zero draft itself.
Yes, thank you, Martin, and I hope that everyone can hear me clearly. And I do hope on behalf of Martin and I that you and your families are doing well at this time. And we're all trying to adjust to the new normal and making use of this online webinar form of communication. So I would like to take this time to say a few words from our behalf on the zero draft. In developing the zero draft, we were guided by our mandate as set out in Resolution 73/292 to prepare a brief, concise, action-oriented, and intergovernmentally agreed declaration. And as you know, that focuses on highlights the science-based and innovative areas of action to support the implementation of Goal 14. We have listened to all of you and we have attempted to capture the views expressed by member states and stakeholders at the preparatory meeting and during our first webinar with you, the civil society, concerning what you would like to see reflected in this declaration. The text, as you can see, consists of 5 main parts. The first part consists of some introductory paragraphs. Here, we have chosen to reaffirm the commitments made in 2017, call for action, in order to avoid a renegotiating the agreements we reached in 2017, as requested by many member states at the preparatory meeting. And as you can see in the second part of the zero draft, we recognize the importance of the ocean and address the global emergency facing it, as set out in the Secretary General's briefing and background note. This part includes paragraphs about the adverse effects of climate change and cumulative human impacts on the ocean and its ecosystems. The third part of the text addresses existing frameworks and initiatives in this space, including UNCLOS, the BBNJ process, and the UN Decade of Ocean Science. The fourth part is about how science-based and innovative actions can provide the solutions necessary to overcome the challenges in 14. The fifth part of the text sets out the specific actions we as representatives of our governments commit to take in order to advance the goal of the implementation of Goal 14. As requested by you in our previous consultations, we have made every effort to offer you a focused document that is clear on the actions we need to take. While we have done our best to include as many of your requested elements in the zero draft as much as possible, we have also been conscious of the wish expressed by most member states that the text should be brief, concise, and action-oriented. We ask you to keep this wish in mind as we move forward. We welcome your inputs and ideas, and we look forward on this new working method with you throughout this whole process. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ambassadors, for your intervention and contribution. I will now open the floor to the stakeholders. I will be calling you the name of your organization. If you have any issues to unmute, let us know. If you are not on the call, or if you are not willing to speak at this stage, just let us know as well. So the first person I have on the list is High Seas Alliance, followed by Surfrider Foundation Europe and Co-Facilitators RL. So I'll start with High Seas Alliance. If you could introduce yourself, you have up to 2 minutes, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Naira. And on behalf of the High Seas Alliance and its 40 environmental NGO members and IUCN, we would like to thank the co-facilitators, Ambassador Uladong and Ambassador Herman, and your teams for the hard work and dedication evident in providing the zero draft. We want to work with you and delegates to ensure that this will be a meaningful and enduring political declaration and a key outcome of the June conference, and thank you for the opportunity to provide these inputs. With respect to the draft, the current paragraph 4 notes that 1/3 of fish stocks are now overexploited. However, figures from the 2018 FAO report indicate that overexploited and fully exploited stocks taken together are actually at 93% and recommend that this figure be reflected. Further to paragraph 4, on the list of threats, as UNCLOS includes the introduction of energy into the marine environment under the definition of pollution in Article 1, Para 4, this declaration needs to ensure that ocean noise is adequately addressed and recognized as a serious form of transboundary pollution that should be mitigated and addressed under SDG 14.1. Specifically, we suggest adding levels of noise in the ocean have doubled every decade in some regions for the past 70 years. Increasing anthropogenic underwater noise pollution is now threatening many ocean species and populations. On paragraphs 5 and 6, we are pleased to see the references to the UN reports from the IPCC and IPBES, as they leave no doubt that the science is clear and transformative change is needed in the way we manage our biodiversity and the ocean. On paragraph 8, deciding on how best to conserve and to sustainably manage high seas biodiversity has long been debated, but we are on the verge of a new chapter for the high seas. After over a decade of discussions, we were scheduled to convene next week for the final slated negotiating session of the Intergovernmental Conference for an international legally binding instrument under UNCLOS on the conservation and sustainable use of marine biodiversity of areas beyond national jurisdiction. This treaty has broad ramifications for implementation of many of the SDG targets, including targets 14.3, 14.4, 14.5, 14.7, 14A, and 14C. So while IGC4 has now been postponed, 2020 is still young, and the delay heightens the importance for this declaration to acknowledge the progress made thus far, and include at the end of this paragraph, and I quote, and urge its conclusion in 2020 with robust conservation provisions, end quote. And then just a few final. Oh.
Thank you, Peggy. Can you wrap up? Sorry.
Yes, we will submit our full comments in writing. So thank you again for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Peggy. Colleagues, those who are being invited to speak, if you want to turn on your video, this is also a feature that is available for you, I think. So I have the next one's Surfrider Foundation from Europe. If you are on the call, can you unmute yourself? The following ones, just be ready. Co-Facilitators from Costa Rica, and then University College Dublin, Patrick Paul. So Surfrider, are you on the call?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Over to you.
Thanks a lot. So Surfrider Europe would like to thank you a lot for this excellent draft and for this opportunity to participate in this exercise. So first on paragraph 1, we believe the declaration should start with a mention of the necessity to restore and not only improve the health of our ocean. We also consider the resilience is as important as the health of the ocean, and certainly more important than its productivity. For this reason, we would like to ask for a change in the last sentence that should be read as leaders and representative of our governments, we are determined to act decisively and urgently to improve and restore the health and resilience of the ocean. Then on paragraph 10 and on point C of paragraph 10, we'd like to see the mention of developing new biodegradable materials to be removed. We believe overall reduction of plastic use and restriction of unnecessary plastic, such as single-use plastic, as well as the necessity to prevent and limit microplastics release should be mentioned instead of this mention of biodegradable materials with several NGOs, including NGOs from Breakthrough from Plastic or Rethink Plastic Alliance. We strongly believe bioplastic and material substitution are not adequate solutions to address plastic pollution. Then on point E of this paragraph 10, we would like to ask for an addition. When we read developing and implementing measures to mitigate and adapt climate change, including through increasing the use of ocean-based renewable energy technologies, we like to see added, and through limiting and stopping oil and gas extraction and exploration at sea, so to limit oil pollution. Thanks a lot. That's all for us.
Thank you so much, Gaia. So I have the other one, the UN Women Major Group, Co-Facilitators. Viviane, I think I see you. So, and then following University College of Dublin, and then following that, Vivek Foundation. So, Viviane, over to you.
Good morning, Nara and honorable ambassadors. Small-scale fisheries is very diverse and dynamic. It is a way of life intertwined with biological and cultural diversity and livelihoods in a very indivisible way. Small-scale fisheries employ more than 90% of the world's captured fishers and fish workers. About half of them are women. Despite its importance, small-scale fishing communities, fishing indigenous people, fisherwomen and fishermen continue to be marginalized and their contribution to food security, nutrition, marine conservation and management of marine resources undervalued and under-recognized worldwide. We proposed in the initial section, Our Oceans, Our Future, Our Responsibility, to add the recognition of the role of small-scale fishers in conservation of ocean, food security, and poverty eradication, especially to recognize the role of fisher and mollusk gatherer women along the different value chains, pre and post fishing, and the need of a more integral ecosystem approach that provides social development, employment, and decent work to this sector. We suggest, if possible, to add to the commitment sections. First, to share and implement the voluntary guidelines for securing sustainable small-scale fisheries in the context of food security and poverty eradication through concrete national policies at the national level. To promote the generation of official information that identifies and characterizes the sector at the national levels and value its inputs in a holistic perspective that recognize the necessary human rights approach to marine conservation, to recognize the inputs of the indigenous people and local community in the governance of the marine territories of life, and to integrate these shared and communitary governance models to the global efforts for increasing the marine protected areas. In commitment F, to add empower fisherwomen to make it more specific. Indigenous people and local communities are working hard to govern and manage their territories of life and areas in ways that are environmentally, socially, cultural, and economically sustainable. They are doing this through a diversity of approaches, cultural and livelihood practices, and activities that contribute to conservation and should be recognized. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vivian. Colleagues, may I also ask you to tell where you are based? I think, Vivian, you're based in Costa Rica, if I'm not mistaken. And also, if you are delivering statements on behalf of others that I don't mention, please feel free to also include this information. So next one on the list, and colleagues, if you are not speaking, can you mute yourself? I see Canillos, can you mute yourself? The next one on the list is Patrick Paul Walsh from University College Dublin and the UN Major Group for Science and Technology, followed by Vivek Foundation, and then the International Alliance to Combat Ocean Acidification. So Patrick Paul, I think I saw you on the call. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, moderator, excellencies, and my distinguished colleagues. I am Patrick Paul Walsh, a professor of international development studies in University College Dublin. So I'd like to thank the permanent representatives of Denmark and Palau for their work as co-facilitators on the preparatory process and the intergovernmental consultations for the 2020 UN Ocean Conference Declaration. The Zero Draft is indeed brief, concise, and action-orientated, and we very much welcome the science-based and innovative areas of action in paragraph 11 A to H in the Zero Draft to support implementation of Goal 14. The COVID-19 crisis is teaching the world two important lessons. First is the need for a coordinated whole of global society action led by governments. Secondly, the need for governments to work closely with academic and scientific communities in planning and action. Indeed, ocean and climate health are the two sides of the same coin and pose an existential threat to humanity. The Zero Draft, while recognizing the need for a whole of global society participation and the importance of science in addressing challenges and actions, could go further. So I first want to address global society and scientific partnerships. The 2020 UN conference should empower stakeholders and science in the same way as the 2017 conference, and it should go further and be reflected in the conference declaration. To this end, could paragraph 1 in the Zero Draft not refer to the need to induce a whole of global society and scientific partnerships led by governments to act decisively and urgently improve the health and productivity of the ocean? The crucial role of science technology policy interfaces. The international scientific and technology community addresses all the challenges outlined in the Zero Draft at paragraph 10, A to E. Here, though, we call for further links of the UN system to major international initiatives, such as the International Network for Government Science Advice of the International Science Council and the research policy and education initiatives of the Sustainable Development Solutions Network. Universities should be a key partner in delivering SDG 14 in science and education, finance, data, and partnerships, but universities are working hard to reorientate their education, research, and policy outreach towards Sustainable Development Agenda. The UN system needs the absorptive capacity to capture this. To this end, should paragraph 9 not cast the net further and harvest as much science as it can? And moreover, should the entry points for science technology policy interfaces on SDG 14 not be made explicit with respect to the interagency coordination and coherence throughout the UN systems? This is not part or mentioned in paragraph 13 of the Zero Draft. In summary, the Zero Draft is excellent, and it does incorporate civil society and other stakeholders, including the international scientific and technology community. It has the right science policy interface in terms of challenges and actions. However, the Zero Draft has the opportunity to call for systematic ways to induce whole of society partnerships and the science technology policy practice interfaces, including traditional knowledge, as an outcome of conference recommendations that would go up further to the HLPF and beyond. And happy St. Patrick's Day to everyone on the call.
Thank you so much, Patrick Paul. The next one I have is Vivek Foundation. If you are on the call, you can unmute yourself, followed by International Alliance to Combat Ocean Acidification, and then Gaia.
Good evening to everyone. I am Priyanka Prakash and I am from Vivek Foundation in India. And we are a youth-led foundation that works towards spreading awareness about plastic pollution and the need for cleaner oceans. So today I would like to draw emphasis on point 11 para G, which talks about the need for empowering children, youth, and adults. So our request today is to draw more emphasis on the need for youth to be involved in this. We believe that youth are brimming with ideas, solutions, and innovations, and they need the right platform and the channel to drive all their ideas. So some key solutions and ideas that we wanted to pitch in forward was to include the idea of developing curriculums and the importance of educating and making it more standardized globally, where people who may not have access to the required data, the required information about this problem. We also want to look into the science and innovation side, where we can probably talk about developing incubation labs in especially countries that may not have the required technological infrastructure, and supporting the students and youth in putting forth their ideas either through more regional and local conferences and events that can be backed by the UN. So these are the key ideas that we had in mind. We wanted to raise the request to draw more emphasis on how the youth can play a major role and maybe have more defined goals on how the youth can be engaged in the overall achievement of Goal 14. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Next one, International Alliance to Combat Ocean Acidification, if you are on the call, followed by Gaia, then followed by Action Platform for Source to Sea Management. Thank you. International Alliance.
Wonderful. Thank you, Naira. This is Jessie with the International Alliance to Combat Ocean Acidification, and thank you to our co-host today for having us here. I'm joining you from the state of Washington in the United States. And the Ocean Acidification Alliance is a group of national, subnational governments, as well as other affiliate non-government members that work both to elevate the role of ocean and ocean acidification within climate agreements and frameworks, as well as encourage governments to take actions within their own jurisdictions, both to mitigate and adapt to impacts of ocean acidification regionally. So I'll just quickly tick through. For paragraph 1, when we're talking about greater ambition, we want to ensure that this includes greater ambition to reduce carbon dioxide emissions, the #1 cause of ocean acidification, which is changing the chemical balance of seawater that marine life depend on for survival. In paragraph 3, in addition to mentioning the threats to food security, jobs, and livelihoods, wanting to really underscore also essential impacts to cultural identity and traditions of coastal communities. In paragraph 5, when we speak of adverse effects of climate change, we'd also like to include adverse effects of climate change and carbon emissions. In paragraph 9, just making a key point that we have an express need to continually connect emerging science to decision makers and policymakers, and making that a pretty emphasized point of paragraph 9. And then in paragraph 10, particularly 10E, which is relevant to climate change impacts, really including that governments should be conducting vulnerability assessments to better understand biological responses and vulnerability of local species to increased acidification, and that such vulnerability studies should include assessments about social, cultural, and economic vulnerabilities related to acidification and other climate-related changing ocean conditions like warming and deoxygenation. And finally, overall, I would just mention that increasing the emphasis on government-led actions that include national governments as well as regional and subnational governments. This includes states, municipalities, tribal governments, and really making it clear that SDG 14 is the platform for all governments and all jurisdictions, and that all of them have a role to play in this regard. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jessie. Colleagues, may I just ask the following speakers to try to be as concise as possible. We will be compiling your interventions share with the co-facilitators, but we are trying to accommodate as many colleagues as possible. So I have now Gaia, if you are on the call, then Action Platform for Source to Sea Management, then Martisans, Sports and Cultural Foundation. So Gaia, over to you.
Thank you, Chair, and we'll be concise. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for this opportunity to speak on behalf of the Global Alliance for Incinerator Alternatives, as well as Ocean Care and Sienna. The marine plastic pollution crisis is about to get much worse with planned exponential growth in virgin plastic production. We expect an additional 100 million tons of plastic per year to our markets and ecosystems by 2025. It's no longer an option to limit global action to voluntary knowledge sharing and cooperation. This is why we believe the declaration should support the call for a new legally binding global treaty covering the life cycle of plastics and reducing plastics at source. It should urge the 5th United Nations Environment Assembly to establish a working group to negotiate a mandate for such a treaty in 2021. We believe that this would best fit either in paragraph 4 or following paragraph 8. We also believe the declaration should emphasize plastic waste prevention, including through bans on single-use plastics, rather than adopting an end-of-pipe approach limited to waste management, particularly given that plastic waste incineration generates over 1.4 tons of CO2 equivalent per ton of plastic, in addition to toxic ash and air pollution. Similarly, we believe the declaration should emphasize actions that eliminate the need for disposable products and packaging, including through reuse and refill systems, rather than the current reference to biodegradable materials in paragraph 10C. We believe the mere substitution of single-use plastics with biodegradable alternatives would simply displace harmful impacts to other parts of our ecosystems, bringing pressure on land, water, biodiversity, among other areas. Finally, we're witnessing growing plastic pollution, including marine plastic pollution from so-called biodegradable plastics, which actually only compost in industrial facilities, which are not available in most locations. We can no longer afford to remain within the disposable linear production and consumption framework and must shift towards a toxic-free and just circular economy. Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the ambassadors of Palau and Denmark for their decisive leadership on this occasion, and we will submit further comments in writing.
Thank you so much, Sareen. So Action Platform for Source to Sea Management, followed by Martisan, Sports and Cultural Foundation, and then International Cable Protection Committee Limited. So over to you.
Yes, this is Ruth Matthews, and I'm the coordinator of the Action Platform for Source to Sea Management, and these comments are coming from a group of 27 organizations that come together to advocate for the stronger linkages between freshwater and marine communities to improve ocean health, and believe that the realization of SDG 14 is partly dependent upon the success of SDG 6. In paragraph 3, with respect to the mention of interlinkages and synergies between SDG 14 and the other goals of the 2030 agenda, we advocate for the specific mention of Goal 6 on water, with recognition that the targets of 6.3, 6.4, 6.5, and 6.6 contribute directly to ocean health, and without which targets 14.1 on marine pollution and 14.2 on marine and coastal ecosystems cannot be realized. In paragraph 4, in addition to the mention of plastic pollution, we advocate for the inclusion of nutrient pollution, which is a continued key challenge to coastal waters. An addition may be suggested of nutrient runoff is continuing to cause eutrophication in coastal and marine waters, with impacts exacerbated by global warming. In paragraph 10, on science-based and innovation action, these actions should include strong reference to the need for reducing the impacts of land-based activities on coastal and marine waters in a broader sense than reducing marine pollution. We recommend to add to the sentence, strengthening coordinated governance from source to sea to avoid adverse impacts on marine and coastal ecosystems from land-based activities and resulting changes in water, sediment, and pollutant flows. In paragraph 11, In addition to the actions listed, this paragraph should also include a strong statement on the need to enhance knowledge and capacity on science-based and innovative governance that strengthen coordination between sectors and address the linkages between river basins, coasts, and the ocean. This governance innovation is needed to address the multiple pressures posed on the ocean, including from land-based activities, and should be supported through, for example, enhancing knowledge sharing and capacity transfer. I thank you for the opportunity to submit these comments.
Thank you so much, Ruth. So I have Martisan Sports and Cultural Foundation. I don't know if you are on the call, followed by International Cable Protection Committee and BirdLife International. Martisan Sports, are you on the call? I don't think they are on the call. May I invite International Cable Protection Committee? Over to you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for giving the International Cable Protection Committee the opportunity to speak today. This is Alice Colarossi calling in from New York. The ICPC welcomes and fully supports the language of the Zero draft of the declaration. We would like to emphasize one often forgotten key role of the ocean, which the ICPC would like to see highlighted in paragraph 3 of the Zero draft, that the ocean also serves to facilitate international communication, as noted in the preamble to the UN Law of the Sea Convention. The ICPC and its members are well placed to understand this role. The ICPC represents the owners and operators of most of the world's submarine telecommunication cables, as well as the cable ships that lay and maintain them. As documented in a large body of scientific publications, submarine cables are an environmentally benign subsea infrastructure that carries, through optical fibers, 99% of the world's transoceanic phone, internet, and data traffic. Submarine cables are thus a sustainable use of the ocean, consistent with SDG 14, without which SDG 9 on its target 9C could not be achieved. Target 9C seeks to achieve universal access to information and communications technology, including the internet. So the case of submarine cable illustrates the linkage between SDG 9 and SDG 14. We are grateful for this opportunity and we look forward to continuing to support the UN Agenda for Sustainable Development.
Thank you so much. So next we have BirdLife International, Pew Charitable Trusts, and Conservation International. So BirdLife International, are you on the call?
Yes. Can you hear me well?
Over to you.
Thank you, Madam Facilitator. I'm speaking on behalf of BirdLife International, a partnership of 150 national conservation organizations. First, I'd like to express we welcome the Zero draft of the declaration and all the efforts put into it. And thank you for the opportunity for input. My intervention addresses paragraph 10, letter B, and is very specific and relates to the bycatching fisheries. Science is clear that unsustainable fishing practice, both at industrial and small scale levels, is significantly impacting marine biodiversity. A recent assessment of threats to all seabird species conducted by BirdLife determined that bycatch in longline, gill nets, trawling fisheries, as well as overfishing are top threats to this group. These pressures have been identified as the primary cause of up to 95% of some seabird species declines observed in the last decades. Political and technical solutions are available, but they need to be fully implemented. BirdLife, amongst others, have worked to develop a series of bycatch mitigation measures, which are now required to be used through the regulations of various fisheries. But uptake needs to be scaled up. In addition, with seabird tracking data, we have identified areas of greater risk of interactions of seabirds and fishing activities, which can further inform sustainable fisheries policies. To end, we would like to see the impacts of bycatch of non-fish species, including to threatened vertebrates, addressed in the Zero draft. Persistence over time of marine biodiversity is crucial for an ecologically balanced ocean. Madam Facilitator, Ambassadors, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, and if the ambassadors could stay with us a little longer, I would suggest that we try to cover as many colleagues as possible, and then we can limit the time dedicated to logistics and registration questions. I hope this is okay with you, and I hope the ambassadors can stay with us 10 minutes more for this, but we are advancing on our list. So I have the next one, Pew Charitable Trusts. I heard that Conservation International will not be taking the floor. So I'll be inviting, checking if this organization, Bureau pour la croissance intégrale et la dignité de l'enfant, if you are on the call, you'll be next, followed by Deep Ocean Stewardship Initiative and Deep Ocean Observing Strategy. So Pew Charitable Trusts, over to you.
Thank you, Naira, and thank you, Your Excellencies, for this opportunity to input on the Zero Draft. I am Megan Jumi Watanapan, speaking on behalf of the Pew Charitable Trust based in Washington, D.C. We would like to thank you for the Zero Draft, and we commend the urgency the text gives to the concerning state of our ocean. We have a few recommendations to further reflect the appropriate level of urgency and to add actionable items to the Zero Draft. Noting that the theme of this ocean conference is on increasing ocean science and innovation, the Zero Draft can go further in outlining specific areas that need increased focus. For example, more research is needed on marine pollution, including plastic litter, on deep sea ecosystems, the Southern Ocean and the Arctic Ocean, in order to better understand how these systems are responding to climate change, fishing, and other human pressures. Paragraph 8 notes the importance of the BBNJ Treaty. We recommend strengthening this paragraph to say, the successful conclusion of the BBNJ Treaty will be critical to achieving a healthy ocean, and a treaty is needed by the end of 2020. We also recommend specifically noting the important work underway by the UN system and related organizations. For example, the work of the ISA on ensuring effective protection in the marine environment from deep sea mining, the WTO's discussions on ending harmful fishing subsidies, and the designation of marine protected areas by CAMLAR. The Zero Draft can also go further in noting the interlinkages between the SDGs, the challenges presented by illicit activity associated with illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing, and the surveillance and information sharing necessary to combat it, have a disproportionate impact on developing states, particularly small island developing states. Finally, while we support the focus on and the call for more ocean science and innovation, there are many proven ways to increase the health and resilience of ocean ecosystems, including the designation and management of marine protected areas, the adoption and enforcement of science-based harvest strategies for fisheries, and the elimination of harmful fishery subsidies. In calling for more science and technology, we must not lose sight of the urgent need to take action in areas where a solid evidence base already exists. We have further comments on the draft text and are happy to submit those in writing. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much. So moving forward, I will try again. Bureau pour la croissance intégrale et la dignité de l'enfant, followed by Deep Ocean Stewardship Initiative, Deep Ocean Observing Strategy, followed by CANEOS and Ocean Care. I don't think the colleagues from the Democratic Republic of Congo might be on the call, so let me invite Deep Ocean Stewardship Initiative. Over to you.
Thank you. Co-facilitators. I'm Lisa Levin in San Diego, California, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Deep Ocean Stewardship Initiative and the Deep Ocean Observing Strategy. We welcome this opportunity to contribute to the Zero Draft Declaration. We note with support the mention of ocean warming, ocean acidification, and deoxygenation, and the prioritizing of mitigation and adaptation to climate change in item 5 of the draft declaration. We would like to offer the following remarks. Over 60% of the ocean, the area beyond national jurisdiction encompassing the high seas and the deep seas, does not fall under the jurisdiction of the UNFCCC and does not have planned climate mitigation and adaptation as occurs under the state's nationally determined contributions. Given the increasing development of living and non-living resource extraction activities in areas beyond national jurisdiction, We encourage the full integration of climate mitigation and adaptation into newly evolving conservation, management, and policy actions for the high seas and deep seas. Please consider reflecting the integral connection of biodiversity, climate, and human well-being in items 5, 6, 7, and 8, rather than separating climate as an isolated phenomenon. Please recognize that actions identified in item 10 for areas beyond national jurisdiction require extensive coordination across the heavily siloed management of fisheries, seafloor minerals, biodiversity, genetic resources, shipping, dumping, cables, and more. This is especially true for the development of marine protected areas in areas beyond national jurisdiction. Also, please recognize the critical role for ocean observing and exploration within the high seas and deep seas to address all the actions identified in item 10, particularly for ocean management, planning, and decision-making, for area-based management, climate mitigation and adaptation, and for nature-based solutions. Thank you very much for this opportunity to contribute.
Thank you so much, Lisa. And so we have 4 last speakers on the call listed. So I have Caneos, followed by Ocean Care, the major group of children and youth, and then I will be inviting our colleagues from UN Global Compact to bring some additional perspectives from the private sector. So Caneos, I think I saw you on the call.
Yes, thank you very much. I hope you can listen to me. So my name is Milind Pimprikar. I'm calling from Montreal, from the Caneos Network. It's the Canada, Europe, US, Asia, and Africa, bringing emerging technologies for societal applications. So we would like to bring attention to the action items 10B and 11A, B, C, and E. I have some slides I'm trying to share. I'm not sure if it's you can see them. Can you see the slides? Can you see the slides I'm trying to show?
May I suggest that we just move forward with the intervention?
Okay. Sure. Yeah. So the points we were trying to make are, the first one is on the 10B, as I mentioned, for the use of communication tools for the IUU, which is the impact on the illegal fishing and activities. So there are some tools which are not accessible for both the developing countries as well as for the developed countries. So we would like to have that reflected and see if there could be some kind of a low-cost communication shared architecture can be developed, or some kind of initiatives that would help facilitate this this idea. So we have shared. Through this point, I'm going to send this to you. The second point we would like to bring is in terms of the 11A, 11B, and C. So 11B, in terms of tracking and sharing of data, there is a big concern of having how this data get accessible and available. So we would like to propose some kind of mechanism of creating some collaborative framework for sharing of this marine data, which is accessible again to countries and that can be scaled up at the global level. The last point that we would like to bring is on the indigenous communities. So we would like to see if there could be some kind of focused initiative could be structured to address the needs of the indigenous communities, using especially for the biodiversities and so on. So these are the 3 action items that we would like to see reflected into these points that I mentioned before. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I have Ambassador Herman. He wants to come in and then we can continue. Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Nayara. No, I wanted to come in because I have to leave. I have another conference call on the coronavirus thing. As you can imagine, a number of task forces have been set up in ministries of foreign affairs across the world. But I would be amiss to leave without saying that I have colleagues still on the call and they are busy taking notes, but I want to take this opportunity to thank all of you, both for excellent comments, but also for being very, very concrete. This is exactly what we need at this stage. So when I leave, rest assured that I have Danish colleagues and of course also colleagues from Palau that are busy taking notes and know that your inputs and your recommendations that are very concrete are highly appreciated. Thank you so much to all of you and stay safe.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Herman, for joining and for opening the space for this conversation with stakeholders. It's really appreciated. Colleagues, I know that I'm not sure if Ambassador Uludong will need to leave as well. If she can stay with us for just a few more minutes, we have 3 more speakers on the list.
Yes, I can stay for a few. I'm still on the call. That's fine.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. And I'll give you the floor for some comments after those 3 final interventions, okay? So I have on the list Ocean Care, followed by the major group Children and Youth, and UN Global Compact. Ocean Care, are you there?
Yes, thank you, co-facilitators. My name is Fabienne McClellan from Ocean Care, based in Switzerland. Many thanks for the opportunity to provide input. There is growing scientific evidence that the noise levels in the ocean present a growing threat to fish stocks and fisherfolks. Studies have shown that fish catch rates can drop substantially, with larger fish leaving an area coincident with ocean noise events. Zooplankton, the basis of marine food web, suffers high mortality in the presence of impulsive noise. Anatomical, physiological, and behavioral impacts, including lethal consequences, are documented on marine mammals, fish, and invertebrates caused by noise-generating activities. Across the world, the increasing propagation of ocean noise is now undermining efforts to restore fish stocks, a priority of the Agenda 2030, with serious implications for human livelihoods and food security. Yet, this issue has not been adequately addressed. Hence, the declaration needs to ensure that ocean noise is adequately addressed and recognized as a serious form of transboundary pollution that should be mitigated and addressed under SDG 14.1. Therefore, Ocean Care aligns with the statement delivered by the High Seas Alliance, advocating for anthropogenic ocean noise to be included within the list of pollutants in paragraph 4, and supports the text suggestion by the High Seas Alliance. Also, we recommend that paragraph 12 not only focuses on the implementation on voluntary commitments, but a sentence is included that reads, "We commit to implementing provisions within existing instruments and multilateral environmental agreements, and to encourage thorough review mechanisms within each specific MEA." We're happy to provide those suggestions in writing. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Major Group Children and Youth, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, facilitator. This is Yukratna Srivastava from India, focal point for environmental governance for Major Group for Children and Youth. First of all, we really thank the co-facilitators from Denmark and Palau for presenting us this zero draft and for very inclusive participation of stakeholders, especially the Major Group and other stakeholders in this process. We're also pleased by reference to IPCC and science-based targets and paragraph 11G on children and youth. As for some recommendations, in paragraph number 3, which talks about essential role in poverty eradication and sustainable development, we'd like to see a reference made to intergenerational equity, which is already an agreed language from the Paris Agreement. So to emphasize the role of children and youth in this process. In paragraph number 6, which is about ecosystem degradation and Ecosystem Services Global Assessment Report, we'd like to highlight that UN General Assembly in March 2019 had proclaimed 2021 to 2030 as the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration. So we believe that it could be highlighted, especially the decade targets also marine ecosystems. That could also be done in conjunction with paragraph 9 that talks about Decade on Ocean Science for Sustainable Development. So back-to-back paragraph on that. In paragraph number 7 and 8, which talks about already underway work on oceans and intergovernmental processes, which suggest addition to reference to the UNEP ad hoc expert working group on marine litter and microplastics, which is already, as some of you may know, is working for a treaty on these topics as well. So we'd like to see that reference or recognition of the work that is happening there. In paragraph number 11, that is on stakeholder engagement, which suggests addition of phrase building upon existing efforts. So that means when you're engaging stakeholders, it's done already, continuing what has happened before and not necessarily creating new sort of engagement models. In paragraph number 11 directly, that is not ABC, we'd see an addition to best available science, where it says science-based and innovative actions, because that's really a language that's been used, in the intergovernmental space. Finally, as a general comment, we'd like to have seen more references to national level policies. And this is where we want to bring in the possibility to integrate VNRs, and that this process is also connected somewhere to HLPF. So if the outcomes of this Oceans Conference then feed into HLPF, or countries are then requested to strengthen the national tools, whether that is NDCs or NBSAPs, that would be also appreciated. We also have further comments which we would send through writing. So thank you again, and we really look forward to engaging with you in the coming weeks.
Thank you so much, Yucratna, and for the Children and Youth Major Group for stepping in and joining this call. Finally, and colleagues, I know others were interested in speaking. If you send your inputs to me, I'll make sure to send them to the co-facilitators, but please, we need them hopefully by the end of the day today, because the co-facilitators and their teams, they are working on reviewing inputs. So the final one, I want to invite our colleagues from the UN Global Compact. They are working very closely with us on supporting participation of stakeholders, especially the private sector, on the conference, but they have some inputs related to the private sector. Inas, do I see you on the call? Yes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, over to you.
Thank you, Naira. So I'm Inas Bigambilkok from the United Nations Global Compact, calling from New York. Excellencies, colleagues, I'm very glad to see many of us joining the consultation today, particularly in this difficult time. Businesses need a clear, ambitious, and action-oriented political declaration to have the confidence to invest and the necessary predictability. My comments will mostly focus on paragraph 11. Most multi-stakeholders partnerships are at the core of the work and the mission of the UN Global Compact. Therefore, I suggest to highlight more the role of the private sector in bringing innovation and investment to support the achievement of SDG 14. Under paragraph A on data, private sector can provide a large number of data to science and ocean knowledge. We are working with UNESCO IOC and the Decade of Ocean Science to develop concrete proposals and recommendations to support data sharing and transparency. Under paragraph C, we can go beyond good practices and networking by calling for strengthening public-private partnership to develop concrete projects and actions in support of Goal 14. In this purpose, the UN Global Compact is suggesting to refer to the UN Global Compact Sustainable Ocean Principles for a principle-based approach to those partnerships. Large companies and world-leading banks and investors, such as the Norwegian sovereign wealth funds, are already using the principles in their investment decisions. Under paragraph D, this is a very important point. Finance is an essential piece of success. The market is now working on developing science-based and principle-based finance tools, such as blue bonds, to support the 2030 agenda. I do think that the point D is a very important piece of the declaration. Finally, under paragraph 3, we should mention more clearly the interlinkages between SDG 14 and the achievement of the 2030 agenda. Ensuring a healthy and resilient ocean provides significant business opportunities for global economic growth. The ocean can provide more healthy food, more clean energy, and green transport. Thank you, and I will share with you Endesa the notes of my intervention.
Thank you so much, Inas. I just want to thank all colleagues again for your contributions and for being very concrete in your inputs. But to close this session, I want to give the floor to Ambassador Uludong from the permanent representative of Palau and one of the co-facilitators. Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Niara. And just to, on behalf of Martin and I, just to thank each and every one of you who took the time to get on this call. And as you know, we really value all these stakeholders' engagement with us, especially the civil society organizations and all of you out there. Having said that, we look forward to receiving your written submissions to us. And then we would proceed to the next phase of making sure we gather all the inputs in this process. Having said that, thank you so much for getting on this call with us today.
Thank you again, Ambassador and colleagues. So again, I put my email and my colleague Ellery's on the chat box. If you have inputs, concrete interventions, again, they should be short, they should be focused on the zero draft and should be very concrete. Those that we receive by the end of the day today, we will make sure that we make them reach the co-facilitators. So thanks again, colleagues. We will move to the next session. I'll just start sharing my screen. The next session, we will be focusing on the logistics. So we know that some information that we'll be sharing today, it was already shared in the first webinar in January. We are just updating some information. So those that are aware, though they know how to register, etc., this might be redundant to you. But if you still have questions, and I have my colleague Catherine Good from the UN Non-Governmental Liaison Service. Catherine and her team, they are behind the registration of those that are especially accredited. So thank you, Catherine, for all your support. She is here also to support with questions, and also we have Inas from UN Global Compact, and I know that I have other colleagues that I may call if there are specific questions. So if you have questions on logistics, registration, on others, now is the time that you can use the chat box for that. In the meantime, I'll be just sharing a few slides with you about who can register to attend the 2020 UN Ocean Conference. So this is a UN fully UN intergovernmental type of conference called by the UN General Assembly. So everything that we do, it is bounded by the resolution that sets how the conference should be organized. So the conference, when member states were setting it up, they said that they wanted a diversity level of stakeholders attending the conference. So they said that non-governmental organizations, civil society organizations, academic institutions, scientific community, the private sector, and the philanthropic organizations can request registration. So those that are, they are accredited, and those that are accredited, they can request registration. Here you have the website of all that. I hope I'm sharing my screen, am I? Let me see. I don't think it's working. Just one second. Let me see. I think now I'm sharing my screen. So yes. So then here you have the website where you can find information about how to participate. We will be updating it as we advance. So there is a list of organizations that are considered accredited. Those organizations can register participants to the conference. The list is very long. It includes ECOSOC accredited organizations and organizations that were accredited to previous UN conferences. Additionally, a special accreditation process was set up for the 2020 UN Ocean Conference. There were 2 rounds for organizations to apply. The first round, it was held later in 2019, and the list is already available. The second round started in January, and the deadline was 10 of March, so it's now closed. And we are reviewing the inputs. I will invite Catherine soon to talk about it. The second round is closed, and the submissions are being revised. Those submissions, they will need to be sent to the President of the General Assembly for review. I wonder, Catherine, would you like to step in at this stage to talk us a little bit about the process?
Thank you, Nayara. I think for individuals whose organizations are specially accredited already, we encourage you to go ahead and start registering for the conference. Each specially accredited organization may register up to 5 individuals. And so we hope that in the registration itself, the head of the organization will provide you with a letter that you upload in your registration so that we can see that the head of the organization has approved you as representative of that organization to participate in the conference. I think that the registration itself is pretty straightforward. We're asking you to indicate which of the processes you are accredited through. And then if your organization is ECOSOC accredited, then you would go through a different portal, but the process is the same. And since these are parallel, we'll be able to approve registrations on a rolling basis, so people will know as soon as possible.
Great, thanks so much, Catherine. So colleagues, those that have applied for special accreditation, your submission is being reviewed. We are checking, Catherine's team is checking all, and also the colleagues from Global Compact are supporting a lot in revising all the documents. A list will be sent to the President of the General Assembly. He makes this list available to member states, UN member states. They go through the list on a non-objection basis. So member states, they are the ones who will be defining organizations that are accredited to attend the conference. So, and then as Catherine was saying, registration of participants, it's now open. Deadline is 5 May 2020. Just be mindful that just because your organization, if you are especially accredited, it does not grant you access directly to the conference. You need to register the individuals, and every individual needs to have an account at Indico. So you need to create separate individual accounts because you need to upload pictures, etc. And this is how the system works. Catherine also knows much more about the system than I do. So registrations via email, not accepted. Registrations in loco, you know, if you go to the conference and you try to register in loco, you won't be able to do it. Incomplete registrations or with insufficient documentation will not be accepted, as well as those that are done after the deadline. For those from ECOSOC accredited organizations, you have the rights to approve your own participants. So make sure that you do that. You check people that are trying to register or registering as representing your organization, and then you go and approve or reject those registrations. So I think those are, yes, so this is the information we have. I just want to see if Ignacio, if you have anything specific for the private sector.
No, I mean, we are following the same deadline as the one you mentioned. But please feel free to email us directly if you have any question at ocean@unglobalcompact.org. But otherwise, private sector entities are following the same criteria as any other stakeholders, and we are following the same deadline. But on our end, it will be also very important to hear about, you know, if the conference is postponed or not, because we need clarity in, you know, many various perspectives. So that will be important for our stakeholders. Thank you, Naira.
Sorry, I was struggling a little bit with my computer. So colleagues, I'm seeing a few questions. Let me just go back to one opportunity talking about the previous session. We have now an opportunity for stakeholders to contribute to the concept papers of the interactive dialogues. There are 8 interactive dialogues during the Ocean Conference, and then a concept paper is prepared beforehand to guide the conversation or to set the scene for the conversation. There is an online consultation now. You can select the interactive dialogue, the themes you want to provide inputs. Those are very concrete, and those are the same questions that are being asked to others to provide inputs. It has been postponed until, we just postponed because of this call, to give you more time. Let me just try to show you. So the deadline is 19 March 2020. This refers to the interactive dialogues. For those that are submitting inputs to the 0 draft, the deadline is today, end of the day. Okay, I'll just also share with you, and then I'll just go back to so we also have a mailing list. So every time we have information, if there is any information on any adjustment of the agenda, etc., we will be informing you through that mailing list, and other channels. We will be making information available as much as possible. The information that we have now is that the conference is happening in June. We are working as planned, but situation is changing every day, and we are monitoring it very closely. So I'll just stop sharing my screen so I can go back to the chat box, and then I can see specific questions as well. So let me see. I see a question regarding side events. There will be an open call for side events. And this will be posted online. When it's also open, I will share the information through our different mailing lists. So keep an eye on the website. It's updated very regularly, so you'll be able to find more information there. Yes, side events, etc. I see a question about online meetings to discuss the concept papers. This is a very good suggestion. I'll chat with my colleagues who are putting together the papers, compiling and organizing the papers to see if this will be possible. But I would say your main opportunity is right now to provide those inputs through those forms, this online consultation that it's available now. Yes, the PowerPoint will be posted on our website. There is this dedicated page focusing on stakeholder engagement and participation. Let me see if we have anyone. Is there okay. Okay, someone asking if yeah. Okay, let me just see something for those providing input. Actually, the venue in Lisbon is the Altis Arena. This will also, more information on this, the logistics will be coming. Several negotiations are still going on in terms of finalizing contracts and etc. But this, the Altis Arena is the place for the conference. If you have submitted your inputs to the form, if you want to edit, I would just suggest that you resubmit or flag them to me, and then we can delete the first submission. I'll check if there is anyone else with questions. If you wanna speak, you can raise your hands, and otherwise, please use the chat box. So I thought, so I think I don't see any other questions coming. So colleagues, please, if I'm just checking with Catherine, if she has anything else to add.
No, I think occasionally for people who are new to using Indico, there are some challenges in setting up your account, activating your account, and then registering. So if you do run into any problems, you can always email us at ngls@un.org, which is indicated on the registration page itself. Each person, as Nayara said, has to create their own Indico account. And once you create the account, you have to activate it. And sometimes those activation emails end up in people's spam boxes. Unfortunately, it comes from a no reply account. So just be mindful as you start the registration process that you may have to look in your junk folder or spam folder for the initial activation email. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Catherine. So colleagues, as Catherine was saying, do not let for the last minute. We are following up. We are replying to questions that are coming through the different channels that we have. I know that our colleagues in Global Compact, they are also replying very regularly to questions from the private sector and other organizations. You can come through us as well if you're having issues. Do not leave to the last minute. We have some issue. We won't be able to extend registration deadlines because we need to keep sending that information to security, and there are several other logistics internally to the process. I don't see any other questions, and then yes, again, I see a question about side events. The process to organize side events, it's under discussion, and they will be publishing a call. This is my understanding, is that there will be a call for side events as soon as possible. We will also be organizing the opportunities within the conference for stakeholders to make interventions and to have access to the official meeting rooms, because as you know, the space is limited. So you can register to the conference, but we will be managing the access to the different conference rooms and interactive dialogues and plenaries. And so more information is about to come. Keep an eye. We will be organizing other online conversations as we go forward. And more information on other events will also be posted on our website, including, I see someone asking for the symposium, the high-level symposium for ocean and water. Once I have more information about that, I'll be also sharing with the stakeholders, especially please be in our mailing list. If I don't see more comments, thank you very much for joining this call. Challenging times for all of us, but it's awesome to see the energy of this community.